Good afternoon. We begin with the latest developments from the Middle East. US, Iranian, Pakistani, and Qatari delegations have concluded the first round of intense negotiations in Bergenstock, Switzerland. All parties arrived at the Swiss resort on Saturday, with talks kicking off on Sunday, where they hope to finalize a peace agreement between Washington and Tehran. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif opened the peace summit, expressing his hope for constructive discussions, which would lead to productive results. Qatar and Pakistan's foreign affairs ministers have since described the session in a joint statement as positive and constructive.
At this point in time, with the fullest sincerity at my domain, thank President Donald Trump for his visionary and very dynamic leadership, which has resulted in this meeting here today in beautiful city of Bergenstock. And I think here we are going to have wonderful discussions which will lead to hopefully very productive results in times to come. I'd like to thank Vice President J.D. Vance for his very able leadership, leading United States team, and my very dear brother, Prime Minister of Qatar. He's like a very real and dear brother. And of course, Field Marshal Saeed Asim Munir, his outstanding role, very consistent, and he showed huge amount of perseverance and patience. And I think together, all these efforts have culminated here in this wonderful Schönes Bergen. And it's really very wonderful to be here. And hopefully when we go back to our homes, we'll have some wonderful paper in our hand, which will both promote peace, progress, and prosperity around the globe. Thank you very much.
The talks form part of the 60-day negotiating period between the US and Iran under the recently signed Memorandum of Understanding. Leading the US delegation, Vice President J.D. Vance stated the goals for Sunday's talks to set up the structure for further technical negotiations. And according to Qatari and Pakistani mediators, the parties have established a high-level oversight committee to oversee working groups focused on nuclear, sanctions, monitoring, and dispute resolution. The committee has also agreed upon a roadmap to reach a final deal in the 60-day timeframe.
And what we're trying to accomplish here is very simple. Through diplomacy, through working together to transform the Middle East, where Iran and the Gulf have been at war with each other, or at least have had very unfriendly relations. Iran has been a driver of regional instability. Now we see a future where everybody can work together to promote peace and prosperity for everyone. What we have already seen back home in the United States is lower gas prices. We've seen the free flow of oil and gas. We've seen peace. And now we're trying to build on that to see if we can build something even better and more sustainable for the future. This is a historic meeting. Never before, outside of Islamabad and here, so outside the last few months, never before has the Iranian and American leadership met at such a high level. What the president has asked us to do is turn over a new leaf, to transform our relationship with the people of Iran and to extend an outstretched hand that says to the people of Iran that if your leadership is willing to give up being a driver of regional instability, if they are willing to give up nuclear weapons ambitions for the long term, then the United States is willing to fundamentally transform our relationship with that country. That is certainly our goal. We've already made great progress over just the last few hours. What today really represents is the beginning of a technical negotiation that's not going to solve every disagreement, but is going to allow us to sit together as teams for the first time really in history to figure out what matters most to the respective parties, to settle those issues, to solve those issues, and get to a better tomorrow. The reason why the political leadership of the respective countries is here is because we wanted to, first of all, set up the structure for these technical negotiations, and second of all, make sure that our teams have our full support and know they can always call on us to break through any barriers.
Qatar's Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani expressed his nation's commitment to supporting the peace process, as technical discussions are scheduled to continue in Bergenstock for the remainder of the week. Commenting on the talks, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, in a post on X, stated that tireless Pakistani and Qatari mediation has delivered major progress to end the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. He went on to claim that oil and petrochemical exports have been waived, the blockade lifted, some frozen assets released, and a major reconstruction and development plan launched for Iran.
I think that every one of you has highlighted how important is this meeting, how historic is that event, and how significant is that agreement, not only on the security of the region, but also for the security of the world and for the global economy. What we have done and what we have achieved, we wouldn't achieve it without the dedication and the hard work that was done by you, Mr. Vice President, and Mr. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner.
Regarding the conflict in Lebanon, Vice President Vance stated that great progress has been made, adding that the Qataris, Pakistanis, and Israel are working with the United States towards regional peace. Per the joint press statement from Qatar and Pakistan, the parties have agreed to the creation of a deconfliction cell along with Lebanon to ensure military operations in Lebanon cease in accordance with the MOU.
Well, we've seen great progress over the last just couple of days in ensuring that the ceasefire holds in Lebanon. These things are always a little bit messy. If you go back to how much was happening 3 months ago and compare it to 3 weeks ago, great progress has been made. If you go back to 3 weeks ago to 3 days ago, additional progress has been made. The president has committed us to see a full regional ceasefire. We found great partners in working with the Qataris, the Pakistanis, our friends in Israel. We're all working towards regional peace. There, of course, are going to be sometimes disagreements about precisely how to get there, but I actually feel great about where we are in Lebanon. There's still some additional wood to chop, but we're going to keep on working at it.
However, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been clear that the interests of the Israeli people are his top priority, irrespective of international pressure. Concerning the Lebanon conflict, the Prime Minister pledged during a memorial service on Sunday to maintain Israel's security buffer zone in southern Lebanon for as long as necessary to protect residents in the north from Hezbollah threats.
מדינת ישראל לא תהיה אפיזודה חולפת בתולדות עמנו. אנחנו עומדים איתן על האינטרסים החיוניים שלנו. השגנו הישגים כבירים ולא נוותר עליהם. נשאר ברצועת הביטחון בדרום לבנון ככל שידרש, כדי להגן על תושבי הצפון היקרים לנו ועל אזרחי המדינה כולה. כראש ממשלת ישראל, אני עומד על כך בתוקף, ושום דבר לא ישנה זאת. וביחס לאיראן, יהיו אשר יהיו ההתפתחויות המדיניות, לא אתן לאיראן להתחמש בנשק גרעיני. כל עוד אני ראש ממשלת ישראל, זה לא יקרה.
Speaking in Jerusalem on Sunday, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee expressed strong confidence in Israel's ability to overcome the existential threats posed by Iran and its terror proxies. He boldly affirmed that Israel's continued existence is not the result of U.S. military backing or even its own military might, but because God made a promise that his people, Israel, will never cease being a nation, and he will keep that promise.
This week I got into a little bit of controversy unintentionally because I said something that I've been saying for years. It wasn't anything new, but I made the point, and I want to make it with you. One of the reasons that our nations are tied together is because it is upon the Jewish foundation that Christianity was formed, and upon the Jewish and Judeo-Christian foundation, Western civilization was formed, and without that, there would not be an America. It is as simple as that. I had people excoriating me from around the world saying, "How dare you say it?" I would say, "How dare you flunked history?" Are you not aware that our founders wanted to put as the seal of America the parting of the Red Sea? That in the House of Representatives in the United States, there is a marble fixture of Moses, not of Cicero, not of Aristotle or Plato, of Moses. Because our history is tied more to Mount Sinai than it is to Athens or Rome. It's tied to neither of them. It's tied to Israel. The 3,800-year continuity of the Jewish people from the time God said to Abraham, I'm going to make you a great people, and through you the world will be blessed. When our founders understood, they understood it in such a way that even in our Declaration of Independence, we made very clear that our rights don't come from government, they come from God. They come from the Creator. And where did they get that notion? They got it all the way back to this very city in Jerusalem. They got it clearly from the time of an unbroken history of the Jewish people having been connected to God and being a light to the world. And I want there to be no misunderstanding. Americans, whether they understand it or not, need to be grateful to God for the Jewish people and the foundation upon which freedom and the sanctity of the individual was founded, because that is what separates our values from the values of totalitarianism and dictatorship. I want no part of that. I like freedom, and the heart, the soul, and the genesis of that came from right here in this land. Let us never be apologetic for it. Psalm 121 says, I look to the hills, from whence cometh my help? My help comes from the Lord. When people say Israel will be destroyed, I'm thinking they don't understand, do they? That this is not into the hands of any man or any country or any army on this earth. This land is in the hands of the Creator of the universe. And my confidence in Israel's capacity not only to be here, but to last and to stay, is not because we have a great military and because Israel has a great military. It's because all of us have a great God who has made a promise, and He will keep that promise.
In his address, Huckabee also touched on the nuclear issue, reaffirming that President Trump will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon or to have enriched uranium. However, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian touted on Sunday that Iran will not give up its so-called right to enrichment. The Iranian president claimed that as President Trump has changed his stance on allowing Iran to possess ballistic missiles, so the US president will have to accept Iran's enrichment of uranium.
We will not give up our right to enrichment, and they too will be forced to accept it. You all know what the so-called President of the United States was saying. He has made a complete 180-degree turn. He was saying that Iran must surrender unconditionally. Iran has no right to do this. It has no right to do that. Then he gave a speech and said that Iran has the right to do this. It has the right to possess this. In other words, he has reversed himself by 180 degrees compared to his previous positions and has accepted that they cannot ignore our rights.
Stay connected to our Love World Network channels for the latest breaking news updates from around the world. Shifting focus to Qatar, an explosion occurred at the world's largest liquefied natural gas production and export hub last night. The incident occurred at the Barzan local gas supply facility within Ras Laffan Industrial City, when Qatar was restarting operations after earlier damage from Iranian strikes to the facility. Qatar's Interior Ministry and Qatar Energy described it as a technical malfunction and an operational incident. 54 people were injured in the blast, while 18 are still missing. We'll be back shortly with more updates after the break. Stay tuned.
There are moments in life that are too big to miss. Moments that change everything. With the journey taking us far and wide, we end up miles apart from the ones we love. Yet, even in those times, we find ways to be together. Because when a moment is truly important, distance becomes nothing but a number. Use King's Conference and let your influence span the globe. With 1,000 participants in a single room, there's no telling how far your message can go.
Over in the United Kingdom, it's official. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced his resignation from office. The decision comes amid growing frustration among citizens with Labour governance, disunity within the Labour Party, and a potential challenge to his leadership from fellow Labour MP Andy Burnham. In the lead up to the announcement, US President Trump commented on the matter in a Truth Social post on Sunday.
The question being asked now is not who was best placed to change the Labour Party, to take us into power and to begin the vital work of improving lives for millions of people. Those questions have been answered. The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision. I will ask the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party to set out a timetable with nominations opening on the 9th of July and completed by the summer recess. In the case of a contest, this will ensure a new leader is in place before Parliament returns in September. I will remain in post as Prime Minister until the contest is complete, and I will do everything I can to ensure an orderly handover of power. I will also give my successor my full and unequivocal support, knowing that they will inherit a Britain that is far stronger and fairer than the one I inherited 2 years ago, better prepared for the challenges ahead, and better able to ensure the Labour Party secures a second term in office.
In a late-night vote with limited debates and without a full recorded vote, Canadian Liberal lawmakers have pushed the controversial Bill C-22 into law. The Lawful Access Act allows law enforcement to access metadata and communications from tech companies for criminal and national security investigations. However, major tech firms including Apple, Signal, Shopify, and Google have warned that the bill threatens user privacy by forcing companies to weaken encryption and create backdoors for authorities. Critics warn the act paves the way for mass government surveillance on ordinary Canadians.
They forced the committee to sit past midnight, shut down clause-by-clause study, blocked new amendments, and then bundled the whole thing into one big motion in the House so MPs could race home for summer. With no proper scrutiny, no recorded vote, they just rammed it through while Canadians slept. And what exactly does this bill do? It forces electronic service providers, your phone companies, apps and internet providers to retain your metadata and build technical capabilities into their systems so that the government could access your data more easily. And even with the minor last-minute amendments, the core surveillance framework remains. Major tech companies are sounding the alarm loud and clear. Apple's senior privacy director said that the bill would force them to break encryption, and they will never do that. Signal warned that it would turn everyday tools Canadians rely on into a sprawling, insecure surveillance apparatus. Shopify called it a potential death blow to Canadian tech viability. Google says it goes well beyond what other G7 countries have. And Meta, NordVPN, DuckDuckGo, ExpressVPN, Proton, and Windscribe are all warning that this creates security vulnerabilities. It could force back doors and might drive companies out of Canada or force them to limit services here. These aren't tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists. These are the biggest names in tech and privacy, telling you exactly what this bill threatens. But instead of answering those concerns, the Liberals do what they always do: attack the people raising them, call them paranoid, call them conspiracy theorists.
Recapping today's headlines, negotiators conclude their first round of critical US-Iran peace talks in Switzerland.
At this point in time, with the fullest sincerity at my domain, thank President Donald Trump for his visionary and very dynamic leadership.
Iran insists on continuing nuclear enrichment despite US pressure.
We will not give up our right to enrichment, and they too will be forced to accept it. You all know what the so-called President of the United States was saying. He has made a complete 180-degree turn.
UK Prime Minister announces resignation as dissatisfaction grows with the Labour Party.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election.
Trump administration cracks down on leftist pro-algae vandalism.
$1.1 million for y'all to watch porn scum. Our money's really being fucking spent well for y'all to watch porn scum.
I'm Erika Schroeder, and this is LN24 International with the latest breaking news. Until next time, goodbye.